welcome to Deutsche Telekom stage here at Mobile World Congress. Our next session is going to focus in on the topic of cloud-native network transformation, and is going to be hosted for you by Maistre, who is the editorial director of TelecomTV. Please give him a warm round of applause.
Okay, thank you very much.
Entschuldigung, ich bin falsch abgegangen.
And welcome to this very special fireside chat focused on cloud-native network transformation. My name is Maistre. I'm the editorial director at TelecomTV, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's discussion. But the stars of this show are two very knowledgeable and experienced executives, and I'm very glad to introduce Bikash Koley, Google Cloud VP of Global Networking, and Abdu Mudesir Group CTO of Deutsche Telekom. So let's give them a good round of applause. Bikash, good to see you. Abdu, pleasure as always. So we've got a short amount of time. We're going to get stuck straight into the conversation. So Abdu, let's start with you.
Yes.
There's lots of telco and hyperscaler relationships. They've been formed now for quite some time.
Correct.
What's special about the one between Deutsche Telekom and Google Cloud? What is it delivering that is pushing boundaries in this industry?
Thank you, Ray. First off, I'm a little bit disappointed because he was telling us it's going to be about movies. Now it's about clouds. But, it's not bad. No, in a serious note, I think what is special about this joint collaboration that we have going is we have two companies that have a very strong engineering culture and engineering competence. And what we're trying to do is not take off-the-shelf product that's already solved all the problem, but rather start from what are the open problems that we need to address, and then try to come from a real technical solution perspective and solve that. And that's exactly what makes this collaboration very unique and very important.
Okay. Now, Bikash, what kind of challenges do telco workloads bring to Google Cloud? Because this is a very particular industry. And how has the relationship with Deutsche Telekom changed the way that Google Cloud works with its telco partners? What have you learned?
First of all, Abdu, thank you for inviting me here. You know, telcos have always been a natural partner in many ways to Google, whether it's Android as an operating system, whether it's Pixel and other devices, and of course cloud now. There are many natural collaborations between telecom carriers such as Deutsche Telekom and Google. Telcos, of course, run mission-critical systems. Yeah. They have stringent requirements on uptime, on privacy, on security, reliability as a whole. In many ways, they are very unique to what the telcos do. In some ways, those are also things that Google, as a company, had to go and solve for quite some time because of the applications that we run. Like one would argue, if you ask, any of our users, many of you are users, that what reliability you expect out of search or Google Map, you'd probably say 5.9 plus for sure. We are a heavily attacked domain, oftentimes by nation states. So the security is very core to what we do, and privacy is, of course, fundamental. So a lot of what we have been doing in the telecom space are actually taking our learnings from many years of running highly critical, highly reliable infrastructure, and then learning from really innovation leaders like Deutsche Telekom on the key problem that has to be solved. But a lot of those lessons come from running cloud-native network for a long period of time, ensuring that we have built infrastructure where we can run data plane as optimally as we can for users while running control plane where it makes the most sense, sometimes in cloud. Ensuring that this infrastructure is built for operations with SRE. It's not a traditional operation model. Ensuring that these networks are intent-driven, fully automated, and increasingly autonomous in how we build it. So in many ways, I view this telco network modernization, especially in cloud-native telco network modernization, as taking the lessons learned from what we had to do in Google, learning from what the telcos have been solving, especially the really innovative ones like Deutsche Telekom, and applying those combined knowledge as a partnership, something that Abdu said, co-innovation. Co-innovation is absolutely the key aspect of that. And I would say, the last bit that I must add there, we have been big proponent of open and open source.
Yeah.
We have always done that in networking, open flow, open config, of course, Kubernetes. Same approach with the Telecom. Deutsche Telekom has been a big believer of open and open source. So it's a combination of technology and how we bring the technology to solve real world problem. That's what we're essentially doing
Okay.
here.
Exactly.
So, Abdu, how does this approach meet your needs as a major telco? I mean, you talk about telco as a platform, and this is a term that's just come up recently. I mean, what does that mean, and how does Google Cloud fit into that?
Yeah, I think this approach is for us a natural approach, because you could say, I mean, why do we even look at hyperscalers when we talk about cloud infrastructure? There has been a lot of experience that Bikash just described, but I think the approach some take, and we ourselves have been looking at, is, can I just take the enterprise type hyperscale cloud, IT type enterprise cloud, and start deploying the network there? And I think the simple answer is, I wish, because that would have made a lot of sense in terms of scale, in terms of really cost and time, but it just doesn't work that way. We have extreme stringent requirement that Bikash just described. And I think what makes sense for us is to start from, what is the end game? What do we want to have? We want to have a highly reliable mission critical communication. I think I can't give any excuse to someone that couldn't do emergency call at 3 a.m. in the morning because my cloud was down. It's just not acceptable. And this is the kind of expectation that we have, that we need to work together. Maybe you will be okay with an IT system that's down, you couldn't bill now, but I think it's a different expectation that we have, and that's what we're working through. Now, what it means for us to talk about Teleco as a platform, it's the platform aspect, which means you don't have to have a cloud infrastructure or anything, the underlying platform repeated 10, 20 times and completely rebuilt, right? And this horizontalization is what we try to achieve in Deutsche Telekom. So what do? We make sure that, first off, we go for a multi-cloud strategy. And I think my friends really know that, Bikash and everyone, that we won't put all our eggs in one basket, and that's not the expectation. And as part of this multi-cloud strategy, is also making sure that we don't have snowflakes, that we can't have 10 different flavors of cloud. And that is something we built for scale, we build for reliability, and we make sure this is a platform that gets used across all our operations. And that is something we scale it big time. And that's exactly what it means with a Teleco as a platform. But I think, Ray, one thing that you hear me emphasize every time I talk about Teleco as a platform is the radical automation bit. It's not enough to have a scale and say, hey, I have built a cloud infrastructure that works and scales, but it needs to run in autonomous mode. And it won't be 100% autonomous, but it needs to start from being really automated, start using the capabilities of the analytics and AI, and then make sure that we drive towards the autonomous network. And that also needs to scale across all our operations. That's what it means, this partnership.
Okay. So, I mean, it's great to hear about these things, but of course, everybody will say, well, what are you actually doing?
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the 5G standalone core proof of concept that you, Google Cloud, and Ericsson have worked on in Austria, which was talked about recently? Because the time scales for onboarding a cloud-native function and activating a service suggests that that telco cloud dream that we've been hearing about for years might be actually close to becoming a reality and making a massive difference to the operations and efficiencies and timescales.
Absolutely right. So what we chose to do was to say, okay, let's start from 5G core, 5G SA core. And why is that so? I think one of the challenges that Bikash described as well is that it's not enough to have the cloud infrastructure that's perfect and great and it has been scaled. or even the automation framework that you have, the application has to be designed in a cloud-native way. If I'm not able to do on-service upgrade and I have to switch off and impact customers every time, just doesn't work. So which means we need to be able to start from applications that are cloud-native and start working through our way on other applications. And I think one of the first application in many ways was standardized as a service-based architecture was 5G Core, and we partnered with Ericsson here in Austria, where we try to onboard this application with minimum effort as much as possible and make sure that we are able to show the reliability aspect, but also the ease of operation using all the tools that we have at hand. And that's something we tried to do, and we actually succeeded in many ways, and we are continuing to collaborate on that. It's not the end yet, but that's exactly what we achieved in Austria.
Okay. And Bikash, the proof of concepts are all very well, but they're of little use if they're just ad hoc, one-offs. You know, if you just do it in Austria and then it doesn't scale or can't be replicated. So what can be done to turn these kind of pilots into reusable models, blueprints that can actually accelerate cloud-native processes in other markets?
Yeah, so Ray, if I may, I think this proof of concept was somewhat special because it actually took us minutes to take a 5G SA core activated on Google Distributed Cloud Edge and have a call done. So it was not run-of-the-mill proof of concept, right? You work on it for months and get the application to work. This was real. This was very real in the way we're doing it. And a lot of work has gone in preparation for it with Deutsche Telekom's amazing engineering team. Many of them are here present. I saw Nathan somewhere around. Ericsson and great work that Ericsson did, and of course the Google Cloud engineering team. But there are a couple of key things that we have learned over years of running large-scale cloud-native network infrastructure, very high-performance network infrastructure on our network, and that were applied. So we, even though Google Distributed Cloud Edge is a relatively new platform, it has 15 years of development in it because we leveraged what we built for building what we call Google Global Cache, 3,000 locations in 200 plus country and territory. The same software stack that has gone into building that has been heavily leveraged in building GDC. And why is that important? Like if you imagine you have a rack full of server that has a set of cloud-native functions, you ship them to an ISP in India, an ISP in US, an ISP in Nigeria, Brazil, and in Bangladesh. It has to work the same way. The lifecycle management has to be the same, and it must work every single time. So it's the exact same principles that we applied in GDC, and there are a couple of principles, there are actually 5 that I can sort of spell out. You need to have opinionated hardware with highly integrated platform software that is designed to work together and running pure cloud-native software. This is something that Abdu also pointed out. A lot of the work has gone between Google and Ericsson and Deutsche Telekom in making the application fully cloud-native, so you actually can do it. So that's number 1. Number 2, this platform must be designed from day 1 to be fully automated, 100% automated. So that requires a set of assumptions that you make, but you cannot let go of any of those assumptions when you are building this. 3, privacy and security has to be a design consideration from day 1. You cannot do this as an afterthought. That's why many of these POCs take a very long time, because you then solve privacy and security problems that should have been designed on day 1. 4, you must have a robust CI/CD platform that is designed for full lifecycle management. Also cannot be afterthought. So this platform is built where it is ready for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 of the platform. Last, you must do thorough validation in the lab. So in this specific case, this platform is validated in our lab, in Ericsson's lab, and in Deutsche Telekom's lab, right? So by the time it hits what is POC, this thing is designed to work. And so, you know, I would say it's a combination of knowing what Deutsche Telekom needs out of this platform from day 1, making sure that went into the design, and good engineering. Like that's what ultimately has gone into. And I would say, you know, again, Abdu and I discussed this quite a bit. With the amount of energy that we have put on doing network function virtualization and doing cloud-native network functions, ultimately getting complex network functions to run in a couple of minutes on a cloud, I think we're Ray, you said, I think we're actually pretty close, very close to where we all have been wanting to go in terms of making this production ready.
Well, I mean, it's certainly a massive leap forward, even from a couple of years ago when things were still taking months, lots of people, lots of time, lots of energy. So these kind of things are a real leap forward. But ultimately, Abdu, what does this all mean at the end of the day for Deutsche Telekom's customers? What's the ultimate impact of this kind of collaborative effort?
Ultimately, what it means is if I have to act on customer demand, a new feature requirement, anything that comes, it's not going to take me years or months to develop and to roll out. It's going to be more days or weeks. And this is having the ability to be able to react to customer demand. And second, to be able to take a risk on introducing new innovations without worrying if this is going to stick or not, because you have the capability to roll back and roll out much faster. And this agility is not just a theoretical concept, it's something that I believe customers will get to enjoy and will be able to demand in the future. And of course, at the end, we are in a business, so I expect that this has to be TCO positive. The total cost of ownership has to be bringing value for us as a company, which we can pass on to our customers.
Okay, excellent. Well, I mean, for me, I think that's a really, really important point, a great point to end on. But Bikash, did you want to add any final thoughts before we exit stage right?
Yeah, I completely agree with Abdu. Ultimately, for telecom carriers, they should be spending their time in building the most innovative business and services that they can build for the customers, not worrying about whether the underlying cloud infrastructure is running, because that doesn't produce any revenue for the telcos, right? That's a mechanism of running it. And I think we have taken this very close to our heart. And part of this approach in making that easy for everybody, Deutsche Telekom has a fantastic engineering team. There are many telecom carriers who do not have the same engineering team that Deutsche Telekom has. To make it easy for everybody, we have open sourced this thing, this whole approach of automating cloud-native network function in a project called Nefio in Linux Foundation. Yeah. We announced a product called Telco Network Automation, which is built on top of Nefio to actually make this easy. And we announced something else called Telco Data Fabric, which is, again, for these systems to work well, you need a closed-loop system where you know what's happening in your infrastructure, and you can act increasingly based on AI on what's happening on the infrastructure, right? So bringing this whole ecosystem together for all telcos so that they can have the cloud system just work, and they focus on what is really valuable for their customer, which is building services for customers. That's our goal, and I think we're making some real forward progress towards that direction. So thank you again for inviting us here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great to chat to you both. Thank you. And maybe next year we can organize the Barcelona Film Festival at the same time and extend the conversation and talk about those great movies.
I'm sure that will be a lot more entertaining than the cloud. But thank you so much.
Let's give a round of applause to our speakers here, Bikash and Abdu. Thank you very much.